Hey everybody, world's most boring YouTube video creator here. I just finished the video and I realized it's been a long video and quite a specialty, boring, in other words, video, while the lawnmower is still making a lot of noise outside. So let's do the start of the video at the end. This is quite a long video where I just try to match up the real data that we looked at in a previous video and make those tires, turn them into simulation tires with Automobilista, trying to get the tire models to match. As I said, it's a very long, boring video. However, you can sort of get the summary now. In the end, yeah, I did get a pretty good match with the real data. However, I will also make another video soonish, I think, because we are getting a little carried away matching the data, even though it's lacking so many things and there are so many more things to consider. So this is just sort of a curve fitting, how do we match the real to the sim video. That's quite long and boring, but interesting still. You can see how close we can get and sort of the differences. In the future I'll make a video about things we don't have in the data that are very important in how the tire feels, because we have simplified things too much. We have a slip curve and we match the slip curve, but there's a lot more going on in how a tire feels and how you make it in the simulator. So this is the long, boring version. If you suffer insomnia, you really want somehow to catch a nap, this will probably work. So hopefully enjoy that or fall asleep, whatever. And in the future, I hope to do a few more videos about tire models, and we will actually drive these two tires at some point in the future as well to see what the difference in lap times is, because we're picking the two most extreme tires, the grippiest and the one with the least grip. Anyway guys, a long boring intro to a longer boring video. Bye bye for now. Enjoy. Or scream. Hey guys, while the world's most noisy lawnmower is going outside, this may be the third attempt at this video. Last video I showed you some real tire data and how it was sort of different, even though we were looking at similar tires, yet their grip levels according to the data were very different. Some of you commented, let's make those tires in the sim so you can actually show us how that feels, how that drives. Good idea. In order to do that though, we have to put the tires in the sim and have to match those curves. And I figured let's make a video about that, you know. We went from like full screen camera Niels to a bit of spreadsheet Niels in the corner, and now it's just tiny Niels and big spreadsheet, the way it should be. So here we have the orange tire, which had the sort of the worst match with what I would expect, with a lot of grip, and front and rear, and currently nothing is matched because we have the orange data here, low load, and we have the sim data here. So I'm just gonna make sure we are comparing it properly, just enter some numbers. Alright, this is not something I will explain completely, but I'll just go through the process using my latest spreadsheet, which runs all the AMS physics code in there, plus a curve generation code that I came up with that quickly changes the shape of this curve in a very smooth way without having to manually edit all those points. So let's try and match this up, mess it up probably too. What we see is the real data has more drop off and it has less grip. So let's see. I'm just going to change some more numbers that I think we'll need. Like that. That's not too bad. We will see some issues that we cannot solve, but the idea is just to get fairly close and make the orange tire, which was the sort of most optimistic tire of the real data, and make the gray tire, which was the probably most realistic, you could also call it pessimistic, about tire grip. So now we've matched the grip levels here at this low load, and then the shape is different. So we can probably already predict we might need this at -1. We peak too late, 8-ish degrees, and the real data is way sooner, 4-ish, so the peak has to move a bit like that. So now the first bit is good, but the drop-off isn't. And now we're changing the curve, so I'm seeing the stiffness is probably too high, the initial ramp up. You can just see the yellow line taking over this one, so I can change the stiffness. See, that's much better. The drop-off amount is probably not enough. I don't know. This a little better. It's mainly the shape. So I know from being the maker of this what happens. So I can probably zero these and be pretty close. So this is the limit of how snappy I can make this drop-off. The only thing I can change is the scale. Really want to move it like that. So that's not actually too bad. That's pretty good. We have a very good match at this low load, 1000 Newton tire load. Our sim will now match the real data pretty much perfectly, so that's safe. That's a lesson I learned earlier today. Don't ask me how, that's safe. Right, that's low load. Great, now let's look at higher load, where this is our sim curve and this is the real curve. Zip. Alright, we did change things in a strange way, right? So now we don't really get a good match at high load. Plus the real data is quite odd here. It's very linear here. Even it almost bends upwards, which is very unlikely. So let's massage the numbers a little bit. We have too much grip in the sim. That's better. We have the slip again. Like that. It is super strange how this curve almost bends upward, and that's something that you would not see in... I have never seen this in reality. So this is another strange thing now that we're looking closer at the first few degrees of slip. Let's just actually make it a non-smooth line. That doesn't seem to matter. All right. So this is a red flag kind of already, that this bends upwards. It always bends backwards, and in order to achieve that, I don't even think I can. Well, can I go negative? Well, I can by messing up my own code, like going a bit negative there. But you see how weird that is, that it sort of bends backwards. So I'm not even going to do that because it's just so strange. It also drops off even sooner, so I'm gonna struggle a little bit just finding the limits. Perhaps a little bit. So I'm sort of at the limit of what my tire curve creator can do without completely messing up. But you see it's still, especially here, it is quite close. Perhaps the grip is just a tad too high. That's probably better. And we just have a super strange real data here where it bends upwards, which I've never seen. But otherwise that's pretty good. We still have one load left, medium load. Let's save. And always we have to check back with the low load to see if it still matches. So here at medium load, perhaps my peak is a bit too far to the right already. Can I change that? Can I change that? I want the peak to start moving at a higher load. Like that perhaps. Again, we can see the drop-off is even more sudden in real life than I can make it on this side, but here it's fine. So that's meh, you know, for now it's not terrible, it's a reasonable copy. Okay, how does this look at low loads now? Still very good. How does it look at a higher load? Well, this initial strangeness is just something I cannot get going, but the rest is fine. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with the front tire, what we are matching, especially at low and medium load, quite well with the real data. So that's fine. Let's save it just in case. Onto the rear tires, which are slightly different. So let's see. Let's start again at low load here, 1000. I am not currently plotting the low load. That's this one. Here we see some differences again. Let's just have a quick look at the numbers to see if we don't want pressure penalty, we don't want speed penalty. What have we done here? Yeah, we have no speed penalty, we have no pressure penalty. That's good. Just how many things we are not doing here. No temperature, no pressure, no camber. It's all just following these curves. Right, so now we gotta match this up or mess it up. Place your bets. Something like that, who knows? Yeah, again, the drop-off is not sudden enough, but it seems here on the rear tires, I don't know what you would expect, but this drop-off is a lot less severe than on the front tires. You know, that is something like I mentioned many times, that this drop-off was never measured, most likely in the tire test. They only measured until the peak-ish, and after that it was just a result of whatever coefficients they put into their model to make this little bit of the curve look fine, and whatever happens after probably was never measured. And who knows if a rear tire that's bigger would have less or more drop-off. It's one of those questions that keeps haunting me in my sleep. This was the way we kinda... Oh, sorry. Drop-off sensitivity. But that's a little better. That's probably a little better too. We are peaking too late, so the peak slip at low load is less. That's probably good. We've now matched this side so perfectly we cannot even see. And here is the grip is a little too high, so we have a little bit of asymmetry here again that we cannot quite do in the sim. But we don't even know if this asymmetry exists. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm pretty sure I did, but don't know if it was one of the previous takes. So sometimes when they measure the tire, they might only measure it in one direction. And whatever happens when you then extend that tire data in the other direction might not actually be real. It's hard to say. Some tires can be asymmetrical a little bit. And I guess if you have like NASCAR oval tires, you might see a lot more asymmetry than you do in road racing tires. But anyway. Let's see, that's too much, right? That's a bit better. So now I'm ever so slightly below, ever so slightly high there. Now it's probably fair. We're a little above here and a little below there. What does it look like now at higher loads? Very different. We messed with the wrong numbers here. It felt a little weird. I was tweaking something. That's better. Something in this order. Roughly like that. We see kind of the same thing happening at high loads. The real data almost bends up in a zzz, like this way, instead of what you would expect it to go that way. It sort of ramps up like that, which I've never seen and is very strange. Also, we probably have to do this, which barely makes a difference. Peak. Perhaps that's better. peak is smaller. And drop off is more sudden even. A bit like that. A bit like that. Stiffness, well, we can go to 0. That matches it quite well. And the roundness, that's okay-ish. So this is not too terrible. A bit more drop off. And a little more grip, I would say. That's not actually a good idea. So now what we've done is, again, a sort of a reasonable match. On this side we have a little bit too much grip. Here we have a little too little. Here we have a bit too much drop off. Here we have not quite enough drop off. So this is fair enough for the match at higher load. And have we now messed up the match at low loads, or is it still correct? Still fair enough. This is a little different in slope, but I can live with that. Let's just have a quick peek at the medium load. That's here our drop off is a bit different again, but meh, you know, for the sake of argument, that's fine. All right, so that's the orange tire done. Now let's save this. And pum 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 pum, gray. Save. Here we have the gray tires. Let's see if there is any mistakes made here. Let's just hope I did this properly. I'm just sort of checking. Yeah, probably fine. Okay, I just hope this is all done correctly. The gray tires, these were the most sort of different from the orange tires, with a lot more grip loss at high loads. So let's see if we can make this match. You see already that the whole curve is quite different. So we still want to make sure we don't have pressure penalty, we have no speed penalty. We are looking at a low load of 1000 newtons. Oh, this seems severe, but let's see how we end up here. We are peaking too soon. That's better. And it's asymmetry time again. We see that here we are matching the grip. Here where we have a bit too much. So I'll just go in between. So now the overshoot here is the same as the undershoot there. Let's just sort of do that. We have too much drop off here. And that's probably reasonable, don't you think? So now the shape, yeah, it bends off a little too soon, right? So that's probably my roundness. And how about the stiffness? That's alright-ish. So by changing my curve parameters, yeah, we've now matched this pretty well. For the front tires, let's save and let's look at the high load. I'm sure that there must be some of you who are very happy to see me returning to the insomnia curing level of video. Very high load, 5000 newtons. Well, the guess that I put in here with load sensitivity isn't too bad. Just have to go a little worse. Something like that is probably fine. So still we have a little overshoot here, a little undershoot there. Peaks are now too far to the right. Which is... What? which is again a sort of a magic properties we're talking about here. We're also a bit more there's more asymmetry now, because we don't cross at 0, 0 with the real data. We cross a bit offset, which is kinda a bit like, you know, adding some camber to the tire. How am I gonna get... I don't want this to be done by camber, because this in real life is the asymmetry of the tire. We're gonna have to take a little bit of leeway that we are trailing and lagging here, because this real data is a bit asymmetrical, but meh, it's kind of fine. So here we are a little below, here we're a little above. The drop off is pretty close. I'm actually continuing my drop off a bit. So that's probably even a little better. It's very unlikely that at low loads my real data sort of maximizes here at about 10. Sorry, my real data my real data maximizes here at about 10 at low loads, and then at high loads it maximizes at 7, 8. All the time I've seen real data, your peak slip angle grows a little bit with load, because I think just the tire flexes more at high load, and somehow that creates a larger peak slip angle. So that's odd that we have to reverse this. Very odd indeed. But okay, still the match is fine. Is it still reasonable at medium load? A little undershoot, a little overshoot. Probably okay-ish. Can I change this a little bit? So here that's a little better. Is that so? And how about our high loads now? Did I just mess it up or make it better? Not really made it any better. This is reasonable, a little under, a little over. One more time. A little under, a little, yeah, that's fine. So this is a pretty good match of the front tire. Now to the rear tires. We want to make sure we have no speed effects, we have no pressure effects. And that's about it. Let's just make sure. Hopefully this is correct. It probably is. I'm somehow very scared. This is the third take of this video, and I'm very afraid of doing something completely wrong. But that's fine. Let's see how we end up. Low load. So again, this drop-off shape isn't quite correct, so let's do roughly the same we did here. And then that's a bit too much. That's better. Overshoot it everywhere. That's not surprising. Peak slip too far to the right. Something like that. So we undershoot it here. There is some asymmetry again that we cannot do, and we overshoot it here a little bit. We have a little, not enough drop off, a little bit too much drop off, but that's initially fine. Let's look at the high load. Here we have too much grip. So we need a lot more grip loss at And how am I gonna do that? Well, how about that? Ooh, that's pretty good. We still get a change in shape there that I don't quite like. Drop off is a little bit more sudden. And we might wanna move these peaks a little bit. Again, we have this asymmetry in the real tire that makes it a little harder to follow, but undershoot a little, overshoot not quite enough. Equal overshoot, something like that. So we overshoot, grip a little, we undershoot, grip a little. Drop off is too much, a little too little. That's probably fine. So here we have a pretty good match. Undershoot is perhaps a little I want to match the under and overshoot a little better, but doing that will have messed up the match at high load again a little bit. So now there's probably too much grip at high load. This is probably fine. Let's save that. So now we've got a good match for the orange tire and the gray tire, front and rear, and all these numbers match up. And I just realized I made the most boring video in YouTube history. Well, somebody's got to do it. So now we just created all the numbers that go into the sim, in the tire model of the sim, but it's also extremely simplified. But I'm not sure anybody is still watching at this point, so I probably don't go into the conclusions right now and make a slightly less boring video summarizing this and talking about some other aspects that we have to consider when we're doing the tires, because it's cool looking at this real data, but it's also so simplified and lacking so many things that you cannot really forget about when talking about tires. So for now, this is just a really sort of boring in-depth video of how to match the sim with the real data. We've made two very different tires here, and in a future video I will do some more explanations of what else plays a role in tires, and I will also drive these tires.